Yeah, today we're going to continue talking about the equations of a circle, and we're just going to kind of extend on the ideas that we've already talked about. So of course it's always important to remember what the equation of a circle looks like. And I highly recommend, as I said in the last lesson, that you should always write it every time you want to use it. And let's remember that the center is a point, and it's going to have coordinates h, k, and the radius is a distance, and we call it r. And so also remember that when we look at the equation, if there's a minus in the parentheses, that means that the coordinates of the center were positive, and if there's a plus in the parentheses, that's going to mean that the coordinates of the center were negative. It's the opposite. And so we've written equations if we're given the center and the radius. We've also pulled the center and the radius out of an equation. And so the next step would be to take the center and a point on the circle and try to write the equation of the circle. So of course, every time I want to write the equation of a circle, I'm going to write the equation of a circle. And I can start by plugging in what I know. Well, in this problem, I'm given the center, so that is my h and k. And both of those 10 and 17 are positive, so I'm going to have a minus in my parentheses. So it's going to be x minus 10 squared plus y minus 17 squared. And the only thing we need to complete this equation is the radius. And so what I can do is I can actually go put these 2 points in Desmos. And I'll do that, and then we'll come back. So I'm actually going to put the left side of my equation into Desmos. So I'm going to put this into Desmos. Key here is I have to make my x and my y capital letters because I'm going to ask Desmos to evaluate that side of the expression or that side of the equation. So you can see I plugged that in here, but I used capital letters for x and y. And so it's going to create these sliders here. It's going to give us an opportunity to tell the calculator what x is and what y is. And so all we need is the right side of our equation. We need to know what number do we plug in for r squared. And so we're going to tell the calculator that x is 11 and y is 16 because that point is on the circle. That means we should be allowed to plug those coordinates into the left side for x and y. So I'm going to go into my calculator and I'm going to tell it that x is 11. I'm going to actually have to type it. And I want to tell it that y is 16. And again, remember we need to use capital letters. And so it'll plug in for us. And right here, it'll tell us that this is equal to 2. And so what that means is that the right side of my equation is 2. That means the radius squared is 2. And so we have our equation of this circle. So let me do that again. As always, I write what the equation of a circle is. It's going to make an imprint on my memory. I should label that to be h and k, and I should label this to be x and y because we're going to use those. And so we can plug in 1 and -4 for h and k. It's going to be x minus 1, and it's going to be y plus 4 because it's the opposite of what's in the coordinates. And so now I can go put this part of my equation, just like I did for the last one, I could go put that into Desmos. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I've typed the left side of my equation that I've already started building. I used capital letters again, capital X and Y, just because if we put lowercase x and y, it's going to try and start graphing something over here, and that's not what we want right now. What we want is the calculator to plug in x and y for us, and we want it to tell us what the right side of our equation is going to be. And so I plug in 4 for x and -10 for y, and I got that right here. And it tells us that the right side of our equation should be 45. And So I can come over here. R squared is 45. That's not the radius. The radius is not 45, but R squared is 45, and that's all we really need. We want to write the equation. If we wanted to know what the radius was, we could do the square root of 45. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to give this next one a try. Use Desmos. If you need help, please do raise your hand and ask one of us for help. Press pause, try this one, and then come back and check your answer. So hopefully you use Desmos as your help. Used a capital X and a capital Y, plugged in that +9 and +2 that you got from using H and K. And then you could tell it X is -19 and Y is -2. And it's going to tell you that R squared, the right side of our equation, should be equal to 100. And therefore we get this equation of the circle. If you didn't get that, and you couldn't figure out where you went wrong, please make sure that you raise your hand and you ask us for help. The last way that we can get to the equation of a circle is we can use the endpoints of a diameter. So we talked about a circle having a center, and the radius was how long it was to get from the center to a point on the circle. Well, if we double that length, and we get this thing that goes, this segment that goes all the way across through the center of the circle to the other side, that is called a diameter. And this hopefully is something you've seen before, but if not, you're seeing it now. So radius, or a diameter, is two radii that are kind of like back to back. So that's a radius, and that's a radius. And when we put them all together, when their powers combine, they become a diameter, which we could call D. And so we're giving you the endpoints of a diameter. So we are going to give you these two coordinates. And so what we'll need to find is we'll need to find the center, and we'll need to find the radius, or at least we'll need to find the right side of the equation to be able to write it. So as ever, we're going to start with writing the equation of a circle. And so right now we don't have HK and we don't have R, and so we need to find them. So I've put my coordinates of the endpoints into a table on Desmos. And so one way you can find the midpoint of this diameter, which is going to be the center of the circle, is you can do some counting. So I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 that way. And so my midpoint of my center is going to be halfway along the 10 and halfway along the 7. The other way, if you don't like the counting method, is we can just go ahead and use our ability to find the midpoint, and we can stack these coordinates. So this is something we should have practiced already. And we can find the midpoint by asking what number is in the middle. So the number that is in the middle of 16 and -4, that's +4. And the number that's between -6 and 8 is +1. And so that's the midpoint. And that's also the center, the midpoint of a diameter, like I showed you right here. That's the middle. It's the same distance from both endpoints that makes it the middle, and it's also the center of the circle, so we can call that 4,1HK, and now we can plug in And now we're just doing a problem like we did on the previous slide. We can type that x minus 4 squared plus y minus 1 squared into Desmos. We can tell it an x and a y. So you could pick either one of these original points to make x and y. It doesn't matter which one you choose. You're still going to get the right answer because we need to find this side of the equation. So I'm going to do that once. So I went ahead and I typed in the left side of my equation. I have to fix this here. I didn't have my x right. Let me go fix that. It should be -4. There we go. I typed in the left side of my equation, and then I told it x is -4, 8. You can choose either one of these points, but I chose -4, 8. If you chose to make x 16 and y -6, we'll still get the same thing. We'll get the right side of our equation should be 113. So that means r squared is 113, and so we can build our equation. So this was just like the problems we did to start this lesson, except we had to do one step at the beginning, and that is to find the midpoint. And so I'll find the midpoint one more time. I want to find the midpoint of -12, -5, and -7, 8. And so I need to find the middle number. And so the middle number between -12 and -7 is going to be a little dicey. It's going to be -9.5. And the midpoint between -5 and 8 is going to be 1.5. And so we could just plug those in just the way we'd plug in regular integers. We can say x plus 9.5 squared plus y minus 1.5 squared. And then we need to find the right side. And we can find the right side again by choosing one of these two to be our x and y. It doesn't matter which one you choose the one you want. I would tend to say if you pick the first point, pick the first point every time. If you pick the second point, pick the second point every time, just so you practice the same method every time. So I'm going to finish this one out. So I typed in my left side of my equation. I changed x to -7 and y to 8, and I get the right side, which is 48.5. So again, we're doing a midpoint problem, which is something that we have already done this unit. And then we are using that midpoint, which is the center. The midpoint of a diameter is the center of the circle. And so we can use that for our h and k. And then we can do what we did at the beginning of this. We can use Desmos to help us plug in x and y to figure out what should the right side of our equation be. And just remember that the right side of our equation is r squared. And so if we did end up wanting to figure out what the radius was, we could square root that right side if we wanted to, but we do not have to. So at any point in this lesson, I hope if you had a question you asked. If you have any questions before you move on to the problems here at the end, make sure you ask. If you get stuck while you're doing those problems, make sure you ask. There's two of us here. We're happy to help you. We want to help you learn this stuff. So take your time here and good luck.